We've gotten a lot of questions about the expenses involved with raising chickens and rabbits. So that's what we're going to talk about on today's video. Hey everybody, welcome back to the homestead. This is Kevin and Sarah with Living Traditions Homestead. And tonight we're going to talk about some of the expenses that it takes to raise chickens and rabbits on your homestead. We've gotten a lot of questions as Sarah has done her rabbit series and I've done my series on raising the chickens, about the actual costs involved with raising both of those. It's very hard for us to give an actual dollar amount that it's going to cost you to raise either one of those animals on your homestead. When we lived in Arizona, our costs were significantly higher than they are here in Missouri, but the cost of living was also much higher. So there's a lot that goes into play there. So instead of giving you guys an actual dollar amount of what things are going to cost, we thought we would take this opportunity to give you a list of the expenses that you can figure out based on what it costs you in your local area, so that you have a true picture of what it will cost you before you actually start on either one of these adventures on your homestead.
Right, and you know, one of the variables that you all have no idea about before ever starting to raise your own chickens or rabbits is how much food are they going to eat? So that's one of the answers that we're going to provide you with that will make it a lot easier when you're going out and pricing feed and the price of chicks and that kind of thing, and bunnies or whatever. You know, you'll have a better idea of what to expect as far as how much they're going to eat, and then you can figure out those expenses.
Right. I remember when we raised our first batch of broiler chickens, you know, quite a few years ago, we looked all over the internet and we couldn't find any information. I had no idea if I should go out and buy, you know, 500 bags of feed or if I should go out and buy 3 bags of feed. Nobody really gave that information. So we're hoping today that we'll help you guys with some of that information, so that you know, our goal here on our homestead is to help you guys, is to teach you and to give you the confidence to go out and do these things for yourselves. I mean, we're nothing special when it comes to this kind of stuff. We're just ordinary people who started doing it and figured these things out. And I mean, it doesn't take, you know, much to do these things, except the confidence to just do it that very first time. So we're hoping that today you will gain some of that confidence to go out and do things the very first time. Right. So we're going to start with chickens.
We're going to start with chickens.
We're going to get out our whiteboards again.
We're bringing out the whiteboard.
You know, we're high tech here on the homestead, so we're bringing out the whiteboards. So I'm going to go over the chicken ones with you, and Sarah will go over the rabbits. And let's start with, you know, some of the things that are pretty obvious. The price of your chicks. That's going to vary depending on where you get your chicks from. Right. It's also going to vary depending on how many you order. If you order very few, the price is going to be higher. If you order, you know, 1,000, the price is going to be lower. Right. So you need to figure out the price of your chicks depending on where you order from and how many you're going to order.
And you know, you'll be surprised at the difference from one hatchery to another. And make sure you look at shipping charges too. Some of the hatcheries include that in the price of the birds. Some of them hit you with that at the end. So make sure that you really look into that. We do have one hatchery that we prefer, and if you're interested in that, we can let you know. We've talked about that in other videos.
I'm going to just let you know now. It's Whelp Hatchery.
Whelp Hatchery in Iowa.
We like them.
We like them a lot.
We've tried a lot, and they're our favorite.
Yeah,
so
they're not paying us to tell you that either. So
no.
They have no idea.
No, they have no idea. So order your chicks. The next thing is feed. Now, we always do batches of 50 at a time, but it really doesn't matter. If you do 1 chick, it's going to eat a certain amount of food. If you do 1,000 chicks, that, you know, they're still going to eat a certain amount of food per chick. When we raise our chicks, we figure to get them from day-old chicks to the size that they're ready to butcher is going to take about 16 pounds of feed per chicken.
Per chicken.
So when we do 50, it takes about 700 pounds of feed. So, but 16 pounds per chicken. So figure out how many chickens you've ordered and 16 pounds of feed. Now you need to figure out, how many bags of feed that is based on your local feed cost. The next thing is bedding. When you start them out in your brooder area, there's bedding costs involved in that. Now we use hay on our homestead because it's low cost.
Right.
We have a big brooder area. It's the middle section of our barn, which is a pretty big area, and it takes us about 2 bales of hay every time we raise a batch of chickens.
Right.
But that may be a lot different for you if you have a much smaller brooder or a much larger brooder. So but bedding is something you need to think about as far as a cost.
Right.
The next thing is packaging. When you get the chickens to the age where you process them, how are you going to package them to put in the freezer? This isn't just if you're selling them, but if you're having them on your homestead, if you're going to put them in the freezer, you either need freezer paper or vacuum seal bags. We use the Texas shrink bags, which work really well, but you need some type of packaging, and there's a cost involved with that.
Right.
The final thing, which a lot of people overlook, is the cost of electricity involved with running the heat lamps and things like that when the chicks are really young. Now this is a harder one to figure out because it just goes on your electric bill.
Right.
I have never really figured it out, but I just always assume it costs us probably $10 in electricity to get those first few weeks. So, but you need to figure that out to the best of your ability.
Right.
So those are the costs involved with raising chickens.
These are the costs that you're going to have every time you raise a batch of chickens.
Right.
Okay. Not the first time, every time.
Right. Now, the first time you raise chickens, there's going to be additional costs. What we like to call the startup costs. Now remember, every time you raise them, you can do some fancy accounting kind of stuff and add some of that cost over here, and I don't know, however people make.
I think that's called depreciation.
Yeah,
or
whatever
that,
whatever that stuff is called. But over time, this stuff will pay for itself. But initially, the first batch of chickens that you raise over here, these are going to be expensive chickens because you need to pay for all this stuff too. But over time, you're going to get good, tasty, healthy, inexpensive chickens for your homestead.
Right.
So the first time, when you first start, you need to build your chicken tractors. There's cost involved with that.
Mm-hmm.
They're not free. Hopefully you have materials on your homestead that you can recycle and get that cost down as low as you can, but there's still a cost with that, and you need to build your chicken tractors. You need to build your feeders and your waterers. I showed you guys early on in the series how we build them, which are very inexpensive.
Mm-hmm.
They work really well. If you follow those plans, you can build feeders and waterers for less than $5 a piece. If you go out and buy commercial ones, they may be a lot more expensive than that. Your price for heat lamps. Personally, heat lamps are something I wouldn't go super cheap on because if they fail, you can burn down your barn.
Yeah.
So,
or lose all your chicks because they didn't get hot enough.
Right.
Or they burn out.
So, I mean, they still don't have to be super expensive. We buy ours at like Home Depot or Lowe's, but you do want a good quality heat lamp. And then the final thing, which can vary a lot, is your processing equipment. If you're doing a lot of chickens, you want processing equipment, that's going to be a professional quality, is going to make your job a lot easier, and is going to, just make the presentation of your birds a lot better for your customer.
And a nicer experience for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, if you're just doing a few, your processing equipment may be as simple as, a pot of hot water to scald them in, and a pocket knife.
Right.
So, I mean, we can't really assign a dollar value to that. That's up to you to figure out what you're going to do on your homestead.
Right.
But these are all the things that you need to think about before you start raising chickens on your homestead.
Right.
So I hope this gives you guys some things to think about, not to be discouraged,
Right.
but to figure this out and go, wow, this is something we can do, and this is something that over time is going to really save us money, allow us to raise our own food, and make us healthier and happier as we do it.
Right.
Let's talk about rabbits.
Okay, here we go on rabbits. Okay, so the rabbit costs seem a lot less here at first. Now you have to take into consideration the cost of the feed for the doe, the mom, and this is actually her feed cost while she's pregnant, before she has the babies. She's going to consume about 10 pounds of feed, and that's actually a generous estimate. 10 pounds of feed in the month that she's pregnant with these babies. Now, were you going to say something? Okay. Now, when the babies are born, from the time that they are born to the time that they are processed, we process at 11 weeks, about 11 weeks, or when they're 5 pounds, they will consume 10 pounds of feed each. About, yeah. Now, keep in mind that at 5 weeks, we take them away from mom, we wean them, and we put them in the rabbit tractors where they, eat a lot of grass and that kind of thing. So that does offset our costs, and that does decrease the amount of pellets that they're eating. But with taking all of that into consideration, on our homestead, our rabbits are eating about 10 pounds of feed in their lifetime prior to processing. After that, the cost is for packaging. We use the same the Texas poultry shrink bags for our rabbits as we do for our chickens. It just makes it really helpful for us. Okay, so those are the costs that go on with every single litter that you have of the rabbits. So keep that in mind. But, like the chickens, there are startup costs. So let's talk about those. Now, the biggest difference between raising chickens, or the broiler chickens, and raising rabbits for meat is that the chicks you just order from the hatchery. You don't have to worry about moms, you don't have to worry about breeding and cages and all those kinds of things. But with rabbits, it's an ongoing situation.
Right. If you have your buck and your does, and you only have 1 litter a year, you still need to feed those does and that buck all year long.
And house them.
So there's expense with keeping those breeders all the time.
Right.
So those are what we're going to talk about now.
Yeah. Okay, so some startup costs for keeping rabbits and breeding rabbits. Obviously, you need to buy your breeder rabbits. In my opinion, that doesn't have to go on the expensive, but you don't want to get the super cheap ones either. You need to pay for, build, buy, whatever, breeder cages. You eventually will want to buy or make, we suggest make, the tractors for your rabbits. You'll need
I suggest make your breeder cages as well. You'll save a lot of money by building them yourself.
Absolutely.
And you can make them to exactly the size that works best for you.
Right, and the kinds of doors that you want and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
But again, don't go cheap on the materials that you buy for your cages, especially the cages that hang up off the ground, because they're going to be walking around in those kind of, and we've used in the past some cheap materials to build those, the cheap wire, and the welds come loose, and then in the long run you need to replace them. Right. So start off with good quality wire when you build your cages.
Right, and you want to keep your rabbits healthy in those cages, so you need a big enough gauge for it not to be uncomfortable on their feet.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so you'll need feeders, you'll need waterers for every cage and every tractor. You'll need nesting boxes. You'll need 1 nesting box per doe. And then, we want to talk a little bit about processing equipment for rabbits. I'll have Kevin do that.
Well, again, much like the chickens, your processing equipment can be very minimal, or you can, buy equipment that is, very expensive. Sarah and I were talking when we were writing these out, and I was joking and said, really, your processing equipment for rabbits could be a pocket knife and a shoestring. I mean, if that's really all it really takes.
Right.
I mean, there's nothing special that's needed for rabbits. You know, I use what we call a kill board, which is something I made a long time ago out of a piece of plywood, and it works great.
Yeah.
But there is a commercial version of that you can buy that's like $50.
Right.
So again, it's hard to assign a cost to some of these things because it all depends on what you personally want to do.
Right. But in general, the processing equipment for chickens is going to run you more if you go all out than processing equipment for rabbits.
Right.
But the startup costs and the maintenance costs for rabbits is going to be more elaborate and potentially more,
Right.
costly than chickens.
Right. And rabbits, if you are doing them, if you're breeding them, this is an all the time kind of thing. You have your does and your bucks all the time.
Right.
Chickens, you can order from the hatchery in 8 weeks. If it was a terrible experience for you, you're done. You're out of the business. It's
Right.
all gone.
Right.
So, there's pluses and minuses to both of those.
There are. And now with chickens, you absolutely have to order your chicks, if you're doing broiler chicks, Cornish cross from a hatchery. But,
Well, even not just Cornish cross. I mean, if you're doing any of the meat breeds, the
Right.
Red Rangers, the Freedom Rangers,
Yeah.
any of those
Those-
are hybrids that you cannot reproduce
Right.
on your farm.
Exactly. But rabbits, you don't have that cost because, over time, you're replenishing your stock by breeding yourself. So,
Right.
yeah.
So, I know this was a lot of information in a short amount of time, but guys, we're here to help you guys. We're here to give you a true picture of what it takes to be homesteaders.
Right.
We don't want to sugarcoat anything,
Right.
But we certainly don't want to give you information that's going to scare you either.
Right.
Like I said before, we're nothing special. These are things that we've learned from actually doing things, and we love to share that knowledge with you guys.
Right.
Every time we meet someone who says, we raise our own chickens, we raise our own rabbits, we don't buy this at the store, we do this for ourselves, that makes us happy because that's what it's all about, is taking control of your life, taking control of the food for your family,
Right.
And living a life that is free from, free. I mean,
Right.
just being free. I mean, if you control your own food, that's a big part of being
Right.
free.
Right.
So, you guys, even though raising your own food isn't free,
No.
we hope that this was a freeing experience and that you guys will start doing your own food for yourselves and your family. If you have any questions, we're open to answering any of those. Leave those in the comment section below. We are going to be doing a lot more videos about how to be self-sufficient. We do 5 videos every week, so hit that subscribe button below. If you liked this video, give us a thumbs up. And until next time, you guys, thanks for stopping by the homestead, and God bless.